After 2 days of looting and rioting in the streets of Port Moresby, Papua New Guinea appeared to be on the brink of political collapse. Believing they'd be safe from police, protesters supporting rebellious Brigadier Jerry Singarok gathered inside the Army's Murray Barracks. Without warning, police opened fire with tear gas and live ammunition. Incensed, troops loyal to their sacked commander attempted to break down the armoury door and seize their weapons. Only the actions of a few cool-headed soldiers stopped them. But after years of neglect, the military had mutinied. Their weapons would not be fired in anger, but the role of the army had been irrevocably changed, and with it, the democracy they'd sworn to uphold.
Okay, you go so down and little officer, we're right behind you. So no good give excuse.
High above the Murray Barracks chaos at the commander's official residence, heavily armed troops guard the man who's triggered this revolt. Brigadier Jerry Singarok has, in effect, launched a two-pronged strategy. Operation Rouse 'em Quick, to expel the mercenaries hired by Prime Minister Sir Julius Chan to end the war on Bougainville. And a second campaign, using the media to capture community support by tapping into a popular cause, demanding an end to political corruption.
It is therefore only logical that I cannot back down on the call for this Prime Minister and the ministers who are implicated to resign from their ministerial offices.
Sir Julius responds by sacking his military chief.
Insubordination cannot be tolerated. The government has acted. The Executive Council has decided that he should be removed. And we have appointed Mr. Alfred Aikong, and he's been supported by the ranks and files of the Defence Force.
But for the troops, Colonel Aikong symbolises the corruption they so despise. He oversaw a contract awarded to a Malaysian company to build these barracks. 2 days after his appointment, soldiers torched the Colonel's car outside the new barracks, claiming the vehicle was a gift from the Malaysian contractor. Sir Julius gets the message. Colonel Aikong is swiftly replaced by a more acceptable officer. Papua New Guinea was sliding into a crisis that had been slowly paralysing the military for years. Singarok's supporters seized control of the main gates to the Murray Barracks headquarters. After 9 years of battling secessionist rebels on Bougainville, they're angered by political apathy that they say has cost them so many lives. Now their anger is so intense that officers suspected of not supporting Singarok's cause are forced to reconsider their position at gunpoint.
They are officers of this place, but we don't know what they're up to.
You have doubts about their loyalty to...
That's right. That's right. Exactly. That's what it is.
Exactly. And what do you do with people who you think may not be loyal to your unit?
Well, we just
have to teach them some lesson.
Gentlemen, let's get us organized into subunit.
For 2 days, Murray Barracks is in turmoil, as troops supporting Singarok continue to question the authority of their officers.
I am the commander.
Calm down. Listen.
It's over, Binis. It's over.
If you operate under these senior officers, they'll fuck you up. You won't get anywhere. There are officers, but they have colonial bloody brains. Their time is over. Commander is a young fellow. He's got brains there. You have to fight him. Fight for him, okay?
Captain Charlie Andrews is one officer whose loyalty to Singarok is not under question. He pilots this Iroquois, one of 5 donated by Australia for operations on Bougainville. With masking tape covering the more serious damage, this is the last military helicopter still flying.
We only get about 1 or 2 at the most running at any one time, which is below our operational capability. We cannot support a battalion with 1 aircraft out there in Bougainville. It's suicide.
Charlie quit the service 3 years ago, disgusted by the military's plight. He returned from a high-paid job flying commercial helicopters only after a personal plea from Brigadier Singarok. But the problems continue, and he pays for the privilege of going to war.
Moving from the base to Bougainville or from Bougainville back to the base where I have to go in and practically beg hotel managers to pay for my own accommodation and the boys. The Defence Force cannot meet it, so I have to pay for accommodation for myself and the boys or the crew, or some other pilots also contributing to pay for our accommodation and meals. And we have turned up at the airports where the refuelers, the Mobil or Shell, refuse to refuel us because of lump sum of money being owed to them for non-payment of bills.
For Charlie Andrews and his colleagues, Bougainville has been a humiliation. They agree with their commander that it's time to stop the war.
Militarily, you cannot win that war. I mean, it's against your own brothers and sisters out there, so most of the soldiers, the servicemen, go out there with a big heart. They're not out there to destroy or kill unnecessarily.
The military has been traumatised by the Bougainville experience. Charlie Andrews knows this war has not only split the country, but families as well.
Come on, look for something.
Charlie's wife, Veronica, is Bougainvillean. Her brother is fighting for the rebels.
So the kids go to school tomorrow, or they have declared today is tomorrow is a public holiday?
Tomorrow,
so
no. They
won't be working tomorrow.
They will expect some more things tomorrow, so kids stay home. Everybody stay home.
Charlie spends 10 months a year on Bougainville. The tension of combat heightened by the prospect of one day confronting a member of Veronica's family.
If something happens, I said what Lee was doing, that was part of his duty, I can't.
I did tell her that
Yeah.
with a situation like this, and if he's on the other, in the opposition side, and if I have to confront him, I do not have that choice, but if he's really up against me, and if I have to be the one that's going to draw, well, it's only in line of my duty. I think this would take
Charlie has already been in action near Veronica's village, evacuating the wounded after a rebel attack. But the army too has committed many atrocities, and Charlie knows that when this is finally over, he will be called to account for the excesses of his colleagues.
One day I have to go home to her village or to her people, and how they will welcome me, I don't know, because of what I have done around there, though I might have not really caused any destruction or damage out there, but just me being a military pilot, and they have seen me operating Iroquois out there. They have their own opinions, and how they will accept me or welcome me into their society It's something that I have to really sort it out before I get there.
Just across from Charlie's airbase, the military has achieved a major victory. The mercenaries from Sandline International are going home. These were the men hired by Sir Julius Chan to succeed where his army had failed, to eliminate the Bougainville rebels before this June's national election. Instead, the army is stage managing a humiliating exit. One of the world's top mercenary outfits, outmanoeuvred by what they regarded as a second-rate Third World army. But Sandline was paid $46 million, angers not only Jerry Singarock, but soldiers like Charlie Andrews. For a fraction of that amount, he says he could repair his grounded squadron.
These are the two Casa 235s that the government purchased from the Spanish government. Brand new out from the factory, and since they arrived here, practically they've been doing nothing in the hangar because of funds to keep them airborne, keep them flying. Yes. And as you can see, one has been used to cannibalize to get the other one running.
So next to useless sitting here like that?
Next to useless sitting here like this.
Yes.
But,
and what's this aircraft here?
This one has been brought by our friends from Sandline. I don't know what they're going to do with it, but this is one of the aircraft they were going to use for all operations.
And what does it do? What's the specialty of this particular aircraft? In here?
I was told this one was going to be used for as a spotter aircraft. That's another one of the Sandline International aircrafts.
How much would something like this be worth, roughly?
Or about $4 million.
$4 million. But that's, once again, you've obviously taken over ownership of this.
I think so. I think so. If the government has paid for it, well, it belongs to the government now, and what they're going to do with it, I do not know.
What would Sandline have used this for on Bougainville? What kind of operational role would it have filled?
It's good for movement of troops, parachuting. If they were going to use it for any parachute dropping, they would use this one. It's got a ram door.
The government repeatedly claimed the mercenaries were only advisors. But when Charlie learnt they were bringing their own helicopter gunships, he knew they were going into action.
For us, we knew that if somebody said that they were here for non-combat roles, we sort of questioned it because we knew we wouldn't be able to train within a short period to take over from them to do the job. So we knew they were going to go with us, whatever happens. They will still be out there because, I mean, for me to operate this aircraft or a gunship within 3 weeks,
just wasn't possible.
It wasn't possible.
With the mercenaries expelled and Sir Julius Chan on the defensive, Brigadier Jerry Singarock descends from his hilltop to address the troops.
They're international terrorists, as far as I'm concerned. Read in background below. They go to third world countries and make those third world countries become banana republics. They will make national forces become totally useless. That's what they nearly did here. This force must continue to protect the sovereignty and defend its people, right? Yeah!
Gone was the chaos of previous days. In its place, a large disciplined force united behind its sacked commander.
I am no messiah. I am only an instrument. I humble myself. I don't intend to get this glory. But I cannot put up with corruption, with decisions that does not reflect the people's need. Attain! Ha! Move to the right, entries! Right! Ha!
He's lost his command, but Jerry Singarock is still very much in control, as his men form up behind him to march onto the national political stage. Perhaps this is what Sir Julius Chan feared when, 6 months ago, he tried to have Singarock replaced with the Defence Force's first commander, Ted Diro.
It was offered to me, Mark, by the Prime Minister and the Secretary for the Prime Minister's Department that I should put my uniform back and go back to command the force. They insisted that I was still on reserve, which I am, and that it would be legally not impossible for me to be back in the military.
Right, time, top, pull out. Get out.
Ted Diro says he declined the offer, despite his dismay at the force's disintegration. But if he were commander, Diro says he'd implement a radical new role for these officers, place them in key positions of the civilian bureaucracy, as Indonesia has done with its military.
What I'm suggesting is that they be involved in the administration, in the public service. They be seconded from defense to come over to public service to try and bolster the administration. So there is some sense of involvement by the disciplined forces.
So you'd support an Indonesian-style model where there's greater integration between the military and the civilian government structure?
Yes, the science seems to indicate that the national interest would be best served by having some military people participating in the administration.
After a 9-day standoff between Singarok and Chan, Captain Charlie Andrews is back in the air. At the gates of Parliament, protesters demand the Prime Minister's resignation. The night before, MPs were besieged in the building after voting to keep Sir Julius in power. Now the army is out in the streets, openly supporting the protesters. Overhead, Charlie Andrews makes slow, intimidating passes over the Parliament building. Finally, Sir Julius relents.
So, Mr. Speaker, in the interest and for the good, and in order to diffuse what is something that I consider to be a little bit explosive outside, I myself will step aside.
We will never ever take over. I want Australians to understand that democracy will prevail in this part of the region. Democracy will stay. What I have done, Australia, is that I have saved democracy. I have protected the constitution of this country.
But the irony is that in attempting to defend the Constitution, Jerry Singarok may have undermined it. The military has become a political player. Will these soldiers still be cheering if the next elected government decides to mount another Bougainville offensive? This rebellion has been relatively peaceful, but no future government can ever depend on the automatic loyalty of the military.